With the release of the brand new Halloween tanks, let's have a look at some of the old ones and of course the latest update news that we've got so that you can have a look and be fully aware of what tanks you want to pick up for free as part of the Halloween event that we covered yesterday as part of the World of Tanks console news video. So we'll continue this event since we got some extra information that we didn't have available to us, and of course then you can find out which one I think is the best and the one that I would go with in kind of like not a tier list but at least a kind of introduction as to what each of the tanks is all about, how you can earn them for free, and what Wargaming are trying to charge you if you want to purchase all of these Halloween tanks in the bundles, because let's just say they're a little bit expensive. But first things first, we do have the updated Bestiary or Bestiary, whatever you want to call it, of Monster Tanks 2023 edition. They do it every year. They kind of go through all of the tanks that were released as part of the Monster Hunter event. So we can start all the way back in 2015. I actually played during this time period where they released the Spectre. This is the original Monster Hunter vehicle. Everyone can get it for free. You don't have to actually purchase it. It's not an actual tank in the game. It is just purely a vehicle that everyone can play. And what it is a tier 34 essentially, but is a ghost. And the ghost version of this tank is able to kind of deal a decent amount of damage. You have a super high reload time, and it actually got a few buffs and also a few nerfs, which means that the reload time goes down, so you have worse DPM, but you also get increased aim time, you get better penetration and also better shell velocity, making this thing a little bit better. This thing is really quick. It also has it just basically allows you to move around the map really quickly. There's nothing too spectacular about this, as it was one of the first ones and Wargaming probably didn't have a whole lot they could do. But most importantly, we then start getting on to the actual premium tanks that are available for you to purchase or get for free, depending on which ones you've already got. Now, the first one that we actually got, or one of the few Monster Hunter tanks that we originally did, and I actually did a video about whenever this came out in 2016, about the Monster Hunter tanks. Yeah, please don't go back and watch that video. It was probably the most cringy thing I've ever seen. But the Lycan T71 is here. And this is a 2016 vehicle. It is the light tank for the American line, the tier 7, that has an autoloader. But what happens when the event comes out is that the Lycan finishes loading its ammo, it enters Lycan mode, it receives enormous boost to its speed, handling, rate of fire and accuracy, and it becomes invulnerable to falling damage. So as soon as you reload, you're able to go faster and basically have a better gun. So it's really nice. And the Lycan T70 returns to its normal state and loses its boost once its ammo clip is empty, so stay aware and be very wary, whereby you want to make sure to have maybe one round in your magazine until you're ready to get out of there, and then you can reload where you'll be slightly slower and have worse kind of statistics on this tank. So that's a Lycan. It's a very powerful tank, and in fact one of the more interesting ones that you have available to you. And then we have the Revenant Panther. This is the tier 7 German medium tank. It is a Panther at the end of the day, but this one has a special awakened mode as part of the event, which is that when not moving, the Revenant Panther appears as a destroyed tank that doesn't reveal its position when spotted. So you can spot this thing, you can be right next to it, but as long as you don't move, you will not be able to actually see it in the game. You can still fire at it, you can still pen it, it just appears like it's a wreck in the game. So you can essentially just stay stationary and try and surprise someone by them kind of going straight past you. And there's often a lot of these dotted around the map whereby people will not realize it's actually you. So yeah, it's really interesting. Certainly one of the ones that's kind of cool as well. And then we have the Garnich KV5. So this is the KV5. This one has a mythical dragon power, which allows it to fire fireballs or whatever you want to call it. Not only can it ignite nearby tanks with fire breath, it can also spit powerful fireballs that do HE damage and yeah, it's very, very nice, and it regens some of its health slowly over time as well, so a kind of interesting one, and actually one that I enjoy playing when it isn't in the Awakened mode as well, because it's a KV5 at the end of the day. So yeah, it's always fun to try and ram people with this bad boy. And then we have the Kaijuoi, which is a tier 6 Japanese heavy tank. It's one of the ones that you can pick up for a limited amount of points. We'll go over the points and how you get them and how many points you actually have to be able to get to pick a free Monster Hunter tank. But this one gets essentially a lightning fast electrical bolts that you can fire off, and a fiery atomic breath that causes heavy damage to foolish tanks foolish enough to get close to it. So it has a fire breath and it gets those electrical bolts. This tank actually got buffed for this one, so it'll be seeing some buffs. So the view range goes up, the reload goes down, your shot dispersion goes down, which means it's more accurate, and your aim time is better. You've got better view range, blah, blah, blah. Lots of different changes to this tank, which should make it a little bit better and more playable. Then we move into another vehicle, which is the Dragon Type 62, the Chinese tier 7 light tank. And this is actually a really, really cool one to play. I love the Chinese light tanks. These are super fun. And the Awakened powers, so this has the ability to teleport around the map using spirit portals. Whether it uses them to escape pursuit or surprise enemies, the portals are only open to the dragon. So you can open up a portal and you can leave and kind of dot yourself around, teleporting around, which is cool. And yeah, very interesting as well. So the reload has been nerfed, so you've got increased reload, but you do have better damage, and you've also got better penetration, better shell velocity, and of course that is the same for both of the guns that you can use, or both of the shells, should we say, which is cool. Then we have the Hollenhund. This was also released in 2017, and this was a vehicle that is the Walker Bulldog variant that you can also play in the game right now. It has increased speed, velocity of its rounds on the standard shell, and increased penetration as well. And the Hollenhund loses, so every time it loses its health, it increases its reload speed, aim time, and handling all increase dramatically as it takes damage. The more damage it takes, the faster it reloads, and the more dangerous it gets towards the later stages of the battle. So an interesting one as well. Then we move on to 2018, where the Bog Horror came in. This is the Mutant, or the M6A2E1 variant, with all of this mossy camo. Absolutely hate this tank in the actual game. But the Awakened powers, its amphibious atrocities and snaring shell ammo traps the opponent so they can't move, immobilizing their tracks for 3 seconds. Additionally, the Bog Horror's height advantage not only strikes fear into the heart of its enemies, it also allows it to shoot over obstacles and take advantage of positions. I mean, yeah, but basically it just traps opponents with its rounds, which is cool. The Wraith Panzer 58, which was released in 2018, also has this spaced armor. It's basically a Panzer 58 Mutz that has spaced armor on it. There's a surprise. This is when they went through the mercenary kind of vehicles, where they just slapped spaced armor everywhere and onto the same tank that was a premium vehicle and called it balanced. The Wraith Panzer has increased speed for this year. It's also got better backward speed. Its reload's gone down, but its alpha damage has gone up. Its penetration's gone up on both of these shells as well. So the Wraith Panzer 58 possesses the uncanny life leech ability, where you can take damage off of an opponent, so you can essentially steal their health, which is cool. But that's kind of all that you have really with this tank, so it's kind of cool. And then we have the Inferno Chimera, which was released in 2019. This tank has a couple of rounds. So the first round is the Goat Purple, so quick repairs and intense ramming power. The second life has the ability to dramatically gains engine power, turret rotation, and camo. So basically you can respawn 3 times with this tank. It's kind of interesting. And then the third life, once you get taken out, has better shell velocity, or better penetration and better reload. So you kind of are a bit more of a damage monster as you come back for the 3rd time in the game. And it is basically a British heavy tank that's actually very good in its current state as a premium tank, let alone when you play it in the Awakened mode, where you have those 3 lives. Then we have the Bellerophon. This is kind of the gladiator, I guess. And essentially it has the Impaler standard ammo, a spear that hits enemies and shatters to do damage. Then you have Force Push, so it hits them with a spear and it sticks to them and pushes them away. And trust me, it pushes them quite far. The Skewer Pull, also a spear that throws into your opponents and then pulls them towards you. So that's always kind of cool as well. So I'm assuming if you platoon up in this mode, it could be kind of cool if you set up like a weird little hybrid between someone that can pull them in, then fire breathe them with a different tank in your platoon. That would be kind of cool to see. And of course we'll be testing out these tanks in their own dedicated video as well, coming soon when we get the mode. Then in the 2020 we had the Fangul AE Phase 1, the Tier 9 American heavy tank. This is of course the Fangul AE Phase 1 decimates its enemies in several ways. It comes with 2 types of ammo. One of them is Crimson Fangs and the other one is Boiling Bursters HE. But if you prefer to give your enemies an unforgettable ending, press the handbrake to jump in the air, so you can actually jump with this vehicle, which is very, very interesting indeed. So yeah, very cool to see. And then we had the Dread Dozer M48A2 Round Panzer. So this one has an awakened mode. That blade, that vicious blade, put the Dread Dozer's blade to good use by ramming it against your opponents, sending them flying through the air, which yeah, finally the M48A2 Ram Panzer can actually ram things, or send your enemies off in a more traditional way by firing the Dread Dozer's unique toxic spikes or muck bomb as well ammo. So there's 2 different types of ammo. One of them will basically deal damage over time, I believe, in the toxic spikes, and the other one is just basically like HE. Then we have 2021, and we were actually here. If you were hanging around since 2021, you'll have known I did a video on this tank when it first came out. This was when they started to release the kind of Derp Cannon German tank destroyers, and this was kind of one of the first Derp Cannons that we saw, of course, prior to the release of the Sturmtiger that we currently have in the game. Now this one has get buffed as well, so its dispersion goes down, its shot dispersion during rotation movement go down, its turret rotation speed increases, its reload goes down, and its aim time comes down, making it a little bit more useful. And essentially this tank, if I'm right in thinking so, you can like launch a lightning strike to hit your opponents, which is cool. And then you also have yeah, just the standard ammo, which is high alpha, which is cool as well. And then in 2023, which was last year, we had the introduction of 3 new vehicles. You'll be surprised to know that 2 of them were just reskins of the previous vehicles. One of them was the Death Charrot, so this wasn't actually a reskin, this was a brand new one. And you can sicking your enemies awaken powers by sicking your enemies seeking skull missiles. Yes, you read that right. Loose upon your opponents. So essentially they just fire out and they actually heat seek your opponents, which is cool. And yeah, that's what this tank is. It's a Chinese heavy tank, which is a nice one indeed. Is it overpowered in actual gameplay? No. And then we have the Arachnid. This is the reskin of a tank that we've already seen, which is the AE Phase 1, the Fangul. Except this one has a horribly disgusting spider on the top of it. Yeah. Don't quite know what wargaming we're going for when they decided that this was fine, but here we are. We have some more stupid skins. But essentially use your handbrake to launch the Arachnid upwards so you can kind of jump like you can with a Phase 1. And take shots, dodge shells, or land on your own enemies to deal massive damage. If you like to deliver your enemies an unforgettable ending in each battle, press the handbrake. So that is basically what it is. It gets a couple of different rounds as well. Then we have the Asterion. So this is actually a really good tank. I loved playing this tank in the actual game. Make your opponents feel like there's no way out. Like the Hoplites, the soldiers of ancient Greece, the Asterion fights its battles head on using its frontal spade as added protection. So really strong armor, to be honest with you. Put the Asterion's blade to good use by ramming it against your enemies and sending them flying through the air. Yeah, basically the same tank as the previous. And then we have the new ones, the 2023, the Roswell XM66F, which you can see the statistics from yesterday's video if you want to watch that. Which is a Tier 8 American tank destroyer. We'll do a full review on each of these vehicles that comes in, which is essentially the Roswell has a positron blaster shell, which can fire a second shell, the tractor beam as well. With this shell hits, it will initiate a horrifying experience for all tanks in the immediate area. Similar to HE, ammo radius of effect and alien abduction. It kind of raises an enemy tank into the air, they take damage over time, and then you can just basically hit them whilst they're in the air, and they probably can't hit you back because they're in the air and they don't get the gun depression, which is cool. And it should be an interesting one to try out in the mode. And then after several seconds, the victim tanks will be released and will fall to the ground. The counter will then conclude, assuming that the extraterrestrials have gotten what they came for. So that's cool. Then we have the Pharaohs Fury Ramses II, which is also in here. And the awakened powers is that fear the fury of a restless ruler. The awakened version of the Pharaohs Fury uses the flamethrower mechanic to unleash a special secondary shell, the Scarab Swarm. Visually unique, will engulf enemies and deal damage over time. So it's basically a flamethrower. And it will be an interesting one to see how they balance it in terms of the armor model of this vehicle compared to some of the others. It will probably be quite strong, given that it is a Cold War vehicle playing up against some of the World War II vehicles that are in the game. So overall, that's kind of the rundown of each of them. Let me know which ones you think are interesting, but I'm going to give you a rundown of what they're actually like as tanks for the earn operation, because you probably want to find out how you can get one of these for free. So how do you actually get your points? It is a points-based system, so you have to earn points, then you get enough points to be able to earn each of the tanks. They require different amounts of points depending on how pricey they are in terms of the gold value of the tank. You can only get one tank for free. The rest, if you want to get them, you have to buy, because it's wargaming. But essentially you get 1 point for destroying one or more vehicles in a battle. So you are limited to 1 point per battle, and then earn 1000 or more XP in any number of battles will also give you 1 point. So I don't know whether these join together, so you could get a maximum of 2, but limited to 1 per one. I'm not entirely sure. Of course, we'll only get that when we go into the game and try it out. Whether they're saying that you can only get 1 point in every single battle, I don't know. But that's how you get the points. Super simple. Basically play the game and kill something or get enough XP. In terms of how many points you need to be able to unlock them, well, you need quite a few. So the first one comes in with just a skin for the Arachnid, which costs 10 points. You can then get 15 points, will give you 100,000 silver. The next one is some silver boosters. Then you get the first actual drop of premium vehicles, which is the Lycan, the Craft Panther, the Kaijuoi, and the Dragon Type 62, which will need a total of 100 points to be able to unlock if you want to get them. If you want to get other vehicles, so the next ones, in terms of whether these are worth it, in terms of the ones that I would go with, first it would be the Lycan T71, then the Dragon Type 62, then the Craft Panther, then the Kaijuoi OI. That would be the ones I would pick in that order if I didn't manage to get higher in this list. Then we have Monster Hunter 5, which is just some rations and silver. Then you got some Commander XP boosters. Then you got a skin. Or a emblem, I should say, and then you get the next lot. So this is at 250 total points. You'll be able to choose one of the following monster tanks, which is the Garnich, the Hollenhund, and the Bog Horror. So out of these, my preference list would probably be the Hollenhund, then the Garnich, then the Bog Horror. The Hollenhund's really good in the actual game. The Garnich is pretty okay, and the Bog Horror is just horrifically bad. So yeah, that's kind of how I would rate those. And then moving on, once you get to a couple 100 points extra, you'll be able to get the next set of tanks, which require 375 total points. Yeah, it's very, very hard to be able to unlock these. But you can pick up the Creature, the Wraith Panther, the Inferno Chimera, and the Bellerophon. Out of all of these, the list order that I would go with is I would probably pick up the Chimera, then the Bellerophon, then the Panzer 58, and then the Creature. But if you're interested in just having a bit of fun and play a weird tank, then the Creature could potentially be number one. But if you're wanting competitive tanks, that's the order that I would go with. Then, moving on, you get a few more emblems, and the final one is the Arachnid, the Asterion, and the Death Chariot, which you can pick up for 550 total points. So it's going to take quite a while to get to these, and most people probably won't make it. But Death Chariot, Asterion, Arachnid, in terms of preference as to which one I think is the best one, the most fun one that I had was the Asterion, then the Arachnid, then the Death Chariot. So that's kind of how I would go. You could quite easily interchange both the Arachnid and the Asterion. Of course, the Arachnid's a tier 9, so maybe that's more important to you to have the higher tier vehicle that costs more if you were to buy it with gold. And maybe that's kind of a reason to go with that one. And of course, you can always purchase the Asterion for gold and a lot less than the Arachnid will cost. But there you go, that's kind of those tanks. And then of course you've got some bonus kind of challenges that you can complete, and they basically are just that you have to play in those vehicles and you get some bonus drops, which is nice to see. And then every single monster tank will get a double commander XP in every game that you play, which is good for leveling up your commanders if you don't already have some 9 skill commanders that you can basically just swap around all your crews. But there, that is the Monster Hunter tanks. That's kind of my preference as to which ones are the best. But if you want to purchase some of the bundles, this is the jokey section of the video, which is yeah, if you want all of them, 51,000 gold. Very expensive. That isn't just like 100 and something pounds. Yes, nice one, Wargaming. I guess it's a decent savings, and if you really wanted a ton of tanks, it would be a good idea. But yeah, 100 and something pound on some tanks on a game, maybe not worth it. Then the Spooky Quartet, you got a load of tanks, 17,800, which isn't bad for these vehicles. The Bog Horror is terrible though, so probably wouldn't go with that one just because that's in there. Then you got the 2023, which will cost you 21,000 gold, so nearly 30, well, nearly 40 quid is it? Maybe even 60, I don't even know at this point. I think 24,000 gold is like 60 pounds, something like that. So yeah, definitely not worth it in my opinion for those vehicles. Ancient Monsters, then you got like blah blah blah. These are very old tanks and probably not worth 11,000 gold. Spectral Sprinters, you have the Lycan, the Hollenhund, the Dragon for 10,000 gold. I don't think that's actually that bad considering that they are all very nice tanks to play. Hero and the Monster, you got the Chimera, the Bellerophon, 11,600 gold. I mean, these two tanks are very good, so not a bad price for 2 tier 8 mediums. The Arachnid you can purchase on its own for 40% off for 12,000 gold. Yeah, I mean, 35 quid for one tank. Up to you whether you want to spend that. Then the Chimera and all of the other tanks you can purchase on their own for a 30% discount. So yeah, just take it at face value. Do you really want a tank? Do you really want to spend 35 quid or more, depending on the bundle? Yeah, just weigh it up. You're all in your own personal economic financial situation, so just, you know, don't feel pressured into buying some of these tanks because Wargaming are putting them on sale. But overall, let me know what you guys think. Which is your favourite Halloween tank out of them all? And are you interested to see these brand new Halloween tanks in the game coming on Tuesday? So be aware, they're coming into the game, and we'll do a full review tomorrow of all of the vehicles, going through each one in the next coming days. So we'll start with the World War II one, then we'll go into the Cold War one, and then of course we can then move into the game itself, the gameplay of the event. So yeah, let me know what you thought. If you have anything, questions, leave them in the comment section down below. And yeah, if you need me to answer any of them, just ping me. And make sure to follow along with some of the videos coming soon, which will cover all of those new tanks. And of course, we will try and cover all of the new and old Halloween tanks as well. So I'll see you there. Have a great rest of the day and a fantastic rest of the week. And I hope you join me back in the next one. Goodbye.